Oh, can you?
Yeah.
Bugger if I can see that. Oh, I don't know.
I've got two windows at the bottom.
Yeah, I see two windows at the bottom, but I
Yeah, so
see
you're
only a black screen that's got Actions to Wealth in it, and then I've got a blue screen that's got a um, what do they call those things? Emojis in them.
yeah, yeah, I gotcha. You're the blue screen, and I'm the Actions to Wealth screen.
Why am I a blue screen? I don't want to
I
be blue
guess I'm the
screen.
Actions to Wealth because I logged on. I think you're the blue
Yep.
screen with the person in it because you're not using a webcam or your camera at the minute. When your camera's on, then you won't be a blue screen anymore. You'll actually be a picture.
Okay. There you go. How's your trade going, mate? Have you taken profit? No.
No, I haven't taken profit. I've got to kind of think about whether I want to stay in it at
Yeah.
all. Which I guess we'll talk about in the show. Well, shows now. But it's a little bit of a tricky call. I'll show you. I'll show you the trade. I saw your euro pound though, buddy. That was killer.
Yeah, it's going okay.
That's going
Um,
really well.
yeah, picked up well. Hopefully
Yeah,
that'll do the job for us.
yeah.
Couple of euro trades yesterday. One, well, we'll get to that after you've gone through your trade.
Okay, mate. Well, yeah. Let's
Because
talk
I've got
about this
nothing
trade.
urgent, I can assure you.
What's that, mate?
I've got nothing urgent, I can assure you. We're
Okay.
in a state of consolidate, continuate, or reverse. Not
Yeah, and
sure
this is
which.
this is the problem that I've got really right now is that I've got a trade on that it's probably going to end up costing money because of swaps and the like.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'll be sticking around with this one for too much longer. It's in a little bit of profit. I mean, what I'm looking at really right now is just to see if it will just refuse this daily or weekly pivot. If it doesn't refuse that area, if it does refuse that area, then I'll probably just take it off as it comes down just a little bit. If it doesn't refuse that area, then I'll expect it to pop up and come and at least test it, and I'll take it off. So the area that I'm in is the kind of pivotal point right now. I want to see
Mhm.
if it will just refuse it one more time, um, or if it will pop up and come back and then take it off. But yeah, I'm a little disappointed. I've got to say it hasn't really kind of garnered much when it was at its very very low point. It was around about uh, yeah, maybe 1.5%. But I was looking for something a lot deeper. You know, I'm looking for a proper move to the downside. What the way I'm kind of thinking about this right now is that I may be just a bit early, and it might just be one of those things that we haven't really had, interestingly, much in the way of sideways trading with the FTSE. You know, it has really been recently. It's been kind of like plummeting to the downside, bouncing to the upside, plummeting to the downside. So we haven't really had another area like this for a little while, and that may be what I'm about to get caught into. I don't know. So I don't think, even though I was looking for this area, that it will necessarily just come down in one hit. So I think it might be better just to kind of take the trade off. It's in a little bit of profit. Um, it's going to end up being a bit of a disappointing month. I'm starting to wonder, but you know, maybe things start to move next week. I don't know, but
Yeah, a week to go, mate.
there's also a left shoulder ahead and a right shoulder in this particular area as well. So that's another reason that the another reason that the pivots are a decent area, because if it breaks forward, then the likelihood is it probably breaks that shoulder as well. What I'd really love to see, which would make my trading decisions so much easier, is if it would stay under this particular point here. In fact, let's bring this on with the daily pivots. Yeah, when I say a disappointing month, I mean a disappointing month because profits aren't as high as I'd like. Not that we're not in profit, but just not as high as I'd like. I'd like to have cleared, I don't know, 5% by now. but looks like it's going to have to be reliant on the last week, or we just put it down to one of those months.
Well,
So yeah,
this one hasn't finished yet, mate.
no, it hasn't. No, it hasn't. I suppose it's because I was looking for a really good move here on
Yeah,
this.
you thought it might come earlier.
Yeah, I was really looking at it earlier. Exactly.
And the bar that actually broke the weekly pivot, you would have thought, that looks
Yeah,
nice.
it looks really good, and even even when I now switched to the 4 hour, the 4 hour broke down and it kind of refused it. But we sort of like now we're starting to get something that is looking more like a kind of turnaround than anything else. This 4 hour bar is going to be interesting for sure, but it hasn't managed to break through this area, and that area does start to become a bit more significant because of, where is it now? Where's it gone? Oh, this one here. Because of that, it's sort of like, it looks like it becomes a trend line hold, and that's what's concerning me at the minute. That the all that's happened here is the trend line is holding. So if it squeezes, within itself here, I'll be really pleased with this, because it will suggest that we're just kind of like, but as I say, squeeze, I mean squeeze within this this pivot area. It will suggest that we're ready to explode one way or the other, which probably means moving stops to break even. But the longer it kind of like remains within this particular area, probably the better it is. So I may change tack, depending on what we end up with today. The good thing is that this trend line now would need to be broken to get back to entry. So if it is broken, then I may well just take it off there. I might just get out at that point and see what's going to happen, because I think I would have had plenty of chance, or the market would have had plenty of chance to hold on. But the issue for me is almost going to start to become the swaps, and it'll certainly become an issue if it stays within this range too tightly for too long. So let's give it the first 15 minutes minimum and see what happens. But I've got a feeling this might well be a bit of a dead duck. So let's see how it unfolds.
Shall we have a look at where I'm up to?
Absolutely. That might be a lot more cheering, especially with that euro pound trade. I love it.
Look, yeah, there's good news around about the place. It's a little bit stagnant thus far today, I'd have to say, but so too it was yesterday for quite a period before we actually got some action. And when we did, it was very decisive. I'm going to start with the euro, and I don't know how many people were listening yesterday, but I said I had an order in the market. Actually, I think it was triggered in the show. And I said it was a just in case trade. And the just in case was just in case of one of these things. And I said, oh, we did get taken in, didn't we? And I said, it's a mongrel of a candle. And I moved my stops right up to underneath entry. And then I relaxed them a little bit to 12 pips from entry versus what was the risk on the trade? I can't remember now. 21, 2, something like that. So anyway, we copped a little loss on that first one, the just in case. But then we got this very, very nice setup here. Had to wait around. I was almost sleepy, guys, by the time this set up. Look, it's not the best setup on the planet, but it's probably in the semi-finals. And when you get a double rejection like that, if the weekly pivot had been below the closes of these candles, this would have been probably the best setup on the planet. But it failed to be the best setup on the planet because of that. But because I was waiting for it, it was pretty much an easy entry for me. And as you can see, that resulted in a very, very nice breakout, if you like. Now, the question, of course, today is, are we continuing the breakout? Are we just going to consolidate? Or are we going to wipe out all of those gains from yesterday?
Are we still in this trade, Jeff?
No, mate, no.
Okay.
Out of it.
Close.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't be going through there. No way. So more analysis on that one a little bit later, I suppose. But if I do get a lower high here, I'm probably a fan of the daily pivot test, and then we'll see what happens thereafter. The trade that we are still in, euro pound, we got that beautiful movement. Now this one yesterday took a lot of time to get motivated, but once it did, it sort of shot through like a lot of them did.
Yeah, some good numbers from the UK yesterday.
Yeah, in different directions. We found, of course, the pound took off to the high side, which is a lot to do with this trade, of course. And our take profit level was pretty cool, just above that white line there. So we're in a no lose situation on this trade.
So what do you do from here, Jeff? Because you know, with the pound, the chances that this explodes in the direction of your trade here and makes a crazy amount of money or crazy amount of pips is quite high. So how do you manage this? You know, to give it enough room, but by the same token, not giving it so much room that you give back all the gains.
Well, I've kept my stop loss where it began.
Okay.
But I've taken 55% off at this point. So even if we get stopped out at that level, we've still got a slight win.
Yeah.
So that's number one. I've got no thought of moving that at this point. I think the weekly pivot is probably good enough. Maybe the monthly pivot is, but if it comes right back there, then you know the trade's over anyway. I would have thought, but we'll see. The way I'm going to approach it is I'm going to take profit at the obvious points, and that obvious point is there. So I'm definitely going to take. I'm going to take half of what I've got left on, off the table, and just leave the rest to sink whatever.
Look at the pound.
I won't even bother trailing it for quite some time. If it does start to go, you know, as you say, we could see a monumental trade out of it, and that's why I'll keep something on. But
it's an interesting market, this, because
definitely going to take profit there.
It certainly looks like with that extension bar that we had yesterday that today would provide some retracement, but because of that weekly bar that you know, you spotted the last week and the week before, certainly that low has got a good shout, really good shout of getting there.
Yeah, you'd be disappointed if you didn't get to there, wouldn't you? Really, and that is where I'll take the profit. As I say, half of what I've got left, I'll take off the table and just leave the rest to run. When I had a look at the charts this morning, obviously I thought, do I try and pick a top here on a few of these crosses? I want to just show you a quick demo of what I looked at. Looked at the Aussie, and pretty strong close. It's not far from its high, and right on that level that we flagged yesterday at 71.63. I think I've got it at. Let's say 71.64. Doesn't look like moving from there anytime soon, I've got to say. So maybe a little creep back. Maybe we'll see. The obvious thing to do this morning is to look for the pullback. So, but picking the top is a very, very tough game. So I avoided the temptation to do that on these crosses. But here's what I want you to notice: Aussie, strong close. Cable, strong close. Euro, not so much. That's the 30-minute chart. Hang on, I'll go back to the daily chart. Euro, not so much. At a resistance level, most definitely, but that candle is nowhere near as decisive as is the Aussie and the pound. I don't know if I'm reading too much into that, but I've got this little inkling that the Aussie and the pound are going to outdo the euro today. So if I'm thinking trading the crosses, I'll probably be looking at trading euro pound short, which I am, but on the 30-minute chart, if there's an opportunity to scale back in, then why not? And the euro Aussie, I may be looking to trade a short here. Made a good spot to do that. In terms of there's a nice little trend line sitting there. I'd like to pull off it though, and then come back to it. So that's going to be the difficulty with that one. This is poised to be a breakout. at some stage. I'd really like to visit this area first and then attack from here. That would be the best entry to go short. So that's kind of in my mind. Euro Aussie shorts. Euro pound, if I can find another entry, then I'll add to the position that I'm in. And that's probably my thought process at the moment, mate.
Okay, all right, sounds good, mate. Sounds good. So
apart from, of course, we're going to turn around the multi-billion-dollar beef industry today at some stage. How are we going to do that? We'll talk about that later, of course.
Okay.
But we didn't get to Bitcoin either yesterday.
Oh no, we didn't. No, we'll look at Bitcoin.
We'll do that in the second half after we've got candles.
Okay, so just a quick.
What do we need to look at in terms of news today?
Well, let's have a look. So we've had wage price index come in weaker than expected from Australia. I guess that's probably had some kind of effect, and we've got FOMC the minutes from the meeting. So not a lot actually, not a lot. It's pretty light on news today, which is another reason.
Maybe US session again by the look of that.
Yeah, I mean it's another reason, and it looks like tomorrow it could be the day that we start to get things that are pretty interesting. Certainly with the euro, with the German flash PMI and manufacturing and services PMI. As for the others, it's going to be about Australia and Canada, which won't necessarily be my my personal currencies to be watching. I'm interested in that euro, of course. And that's pretty much it. And then ECB Draghi speaking on Friday, which could be a market mover. I mean, if he comes out with a more dovish statement, then that may well start to weaken again. Might start to weaken the euro again. So nothing that looks like a huge driver, even for the rest of the week. And this is why I wonder whether next week might be the time to go, when we have not a lot out in the way of data, but the big thing next week is the meeting between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping, and they're looking for an announcement on the 1st of March. So another reason why I'm starting to look at this market and thinking there's probably it may well be unlikely that that anything is going to really shift until we get that announcement. And the other slight problem I've got is that most of these announcements have been about the dispute probably clearing rather than weakening. So I'm not in a great position. What's that, mate?
Did I hear somewhere, goodness knows where, in the course of my day, that they were looking to extend that March 1 is a deadline? What is it? What happens if they don't come to an agreement on March 1? Does the world blow up?
I think it was more an extension of some of the tariffs that Donald Trump was talking about. I think that the negotiation hasn't been changed, but I will look into that. Yeah, I haven't got any specific news on that just yet, but it will come in the next half an hour or so. So I will give you an update on that. And,
I guess somewhat ironically, and this is the beef, pardon the topical subject. This is the beef that America have had with China for ages. Of course, they say when the tariffs are implemented that they drop the value of their currency to compensate for that. And Trumpy wants them to say, no, you've got to give us an ironclad guarantee that won't be the case. That's not going to happen. I mean, even if why would they not just say, oh, yeah, sure, we won't do that, and then go and do whatever they want to do anyway?
Well, that's a really good question, and I wonder whether it'll be about something that's actually in the agreement. I wonder if it's actually the agreement which could stop that. I'm not entirely sure, but you know, that's a fair point and a fair question. But you would think that they would protect against that. You know, Donald Trump,
They
you'd think
would
that he
try.
would.
What do they do? I mean, who controls the interest rates in China? There is a central bank, I assume, is there?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, it'd be a very, very difficult
Or
thing to.
is it Xi Jinping himself? I don't know.
Well, obviously, with the way that the politics over there is, I'm sure he's probably got
A
a
say.
fairly,
Hmm.
yeah, I would have thought he'd have some sort of handle on it. But you make a very interesting point because, yeah, I mean, it'd be very difficult for another nation to tell another nation how they are going to dictate their
Yeah,
central bank
absolutely.
policy,
Hmm.
because there might be other mitigating factors and circumstances that
I mean,
they just have to get around.
they might have a
Um,
crack at Iceland or somewhere like that, but China, I don't think so.
no, well, yeah, and as you say, even if they did, there that's going to be on deaf ears, isn't it? Um,
Absolutely.
but this is the thing about it is that, you know, I don't have the opportunity to wait for that news really to come out, because you know, waiting for an announcement like that just it's just, you know, you're really kind of
It's too
like
late.
living on hope, aren't you? Yeah, and it will be well, it is one of those that unless a trade can be safe, so you know, for something like the trade that I'm in here, the only way that I could wait for that announcement is if price came through this point before the announcement. So it was a decent distance away for me to be able to hold on, you know, throughout the final negotiating, the final negotiations. It's the only
Mm.
way that I could genuinely play this with any really real confidence, or be comfortable with it. I can't really do that, and as I say, it's really got to the point now that I've got to take. I've probably got to take this trade off, and now if it goes through, I'm just going to have to accept it, because you know, the basis of what I'm doing is based on fundamentals, and my fundamental view on the world economy is that the economy is weak and weakening. However, the move to the upside on the FTSE has been so weighted on this negotiation that that one announcement could change everything. And rather than us finding this as a resistance zone, it might be that we find the resistance zone that little bit higher. And if that's the case, then I will be in, you know, all sorts of problems really. I'll be in all sorts of trouble if I have to wait for the negotiations to happen, and it does this here. So if it goes to this point up here instead, as I said before, actually it's on a weekly chart here. You know, I'll be in a trade at this point, and it could go all the way up to this point, and it's going to cause me all sorts of problems. And the reason it's going to cause me the problems is because I've really got an opportunity to get out and get maybe a better price, or maybe a better signal than I currently have. But I don't really fancy hanging around anymore. I've just kind of I've lost interest, and it's because of the way that the story has ended up unfolding. Um, it's just too it's just going to be a little bit too dangerous here. I think I wouldn't mind taking the short on, but certainly the way that things are right now, the fundamentals are pointing for upside, and the technicals are starting to point for upside as well. So you can see it's just, you know, it's looking to move higher here rather than lower.
Yep.
So I will be coming out of this trade at some point today, I suspect. Whether it's
Okay.
here, you know, on a break and a retest, or a little bit lower, maybe just the low end of this. What I'm really looking at now is just to see if it will maybe come back to this point down
Well,
here.
now it's
And
open. That's the opening candle. So
Yeah, I'll leave the open for right now. Yeah. Let's leave that and see what happens.
Old Trumpy, he's got a lot to answer for, that man.
He certainly does when it comes down to trying to make money out of a market that he's so
and
so
he of all
involved in.
people, mind you, saying don't manipulate your currency. What the heck's he been trying to do? Well, by swaying the Fed? Not that they've been swayed yet, but that was always his want, was to control what the Fed said. And if he could do it, he'd do it. There's no question about that.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
We wouldn't be at 2.5% on the dollar. That's for sure. We'd be.
Well, if Trump had anything to do with it,
yeah,
you're absolutely right, mate. I mean, if Trump had anything to do with it, I think we'd be probably wouldn't have moved at all. But yeah, very, very, very close to zero. Yeah, that's the last thing that he wants, isn't it? And it might be that maybe he's right. Maybe the Fed have gone a little bit early. We don't really know, but it's certainly
I've
really
been
not.
saying that for ages, but it doesn't seem to have any effect on them.
No, it's interesting, isn't it? You kind of wonder how some of these countries are doing. So well. The UK specifically, yesterday the numbers were really good. I mean, we've got unemployment down to a number that we haven't seen since I think they said 1970, and the wage inflation has started to gain power as well. So with wage inflation going in that particular direction, then Mark Carney is now in a position where he can start talking about inflation on the whole. So normally we would see, with wage inflation going higher, it's a strange leader in a way, but with wage inflation going higher, normally that would put some stress on some prices. And if that's the case, and we do start to see those prices moving up, then because of obviously the wages can handle it, then the Bank of England will potentially step in when the Brexit melee is cleared and start hiking. So the pound is in a pretty strong position right now. If they could just get through these turbulent times and these turbulent seas, then there's going to be some really fascinating moves, I think, with sterling, and it could be swift. In the end, it could be a really fast break to the upside with sterling. I mean, you'd have to kind of point in that direction because of the overall data. There was a couple of kind of soft data points, but generally speaking, the overall data is pretty stellar. So you'd have to be pointing in the upside direction. It's just now about whether they can finish up these Brexit negotiations positively and give business a little bit of clarity for one and confidence for another. So it's going to be absolutely. It's interesting. Interesting points in the UK economy right now. Especially now we've got these breakaway 7 that I spoke about, the Labour defectors on Monday. They appear to be putting quite a lot of pressure on Parliament generally, with some Conservative MPs potentially joining them in the charge to switch the momentum back to the Remainers rather than continuing with the Brexiteers.
As we say just about every day, time will tell. And geez, I wish it was over.
Yeah, me too, mate. Me too. I mean, we're close enough now for it to know that there's a resolution in sight. But yeah, as you say, it's just been such a difficult time. The only thing is, I think that you're in a really good place now that you've got your pound trade on. And I think that anybody that's managed to get in, if you have managed to get into the pound somewhere in the area of you know, this particular area somewhere here or here obviously would be even better. But I think somewhere in this zone, we're switching now to a monthly chart. If you manage to get into this point and you've got a decent long-term strategy on this, I think people are going to be really pleased with this because it's got a long way to go. You know, I'm not saying that it'll come all the way back down to the 0.7 thousand level, but it's got a good shout of getting to at least this low here around 0.82 or 0.83, something like that. I think that particular area of support will probably be the next area of interest.
Yeah, surviving the volatility is just going to be the trick.
Yes, absolutely. So, well, we're off and running. The market continues to be a little bit problematic for me. As I say, it's right back on my entry now, and really, I need to take this trade off rather than sticking with it. I'm not too keen to take it off straight away. But yeah, I do need to take this trade off at some point. So if you guys are in this trade, depending on what price you got, then I would heavily consider taking this trade down, and then if we get a chance to re-enter later on with a little bit of clarity, then we'll do that instead. But right now, it's not looking favourable. It doesn't look to me like we're going to get the breakdown that I expected. And it's been interesting, really, that all these points that we've seen on the FTSE 100, you know, certainly on this daily chart, ever since we started to take off here, you know, a couple of days of downside and then a takeoff, a couple of days of downside. Now, I don't know, not saying it's going to take off today, but it's certainly looking pretty bullish, and it's looking like it's going to attempt to take off. The only other way to try and play this is to hedge in this area, so it completely blanks the trade. But again, you know, then you've got the problem with the swaps. So if it had come a little bit deeper, then I would have considered doing that. I would have been happy to kind of maybe put on a hedge if it had come a little bit deeper and given me a decent enough signal here. There were signs and signals down here, but they were difficult to read, and the problem was that the very the probably the most poignant signal was this one here. Now that is at 4 o'clock in the morning my time, so there was really no way of being alive for that. But as soon as that double bottom happened and this whole bar happened, then that would have been an opportunity to try and hedge this one, or just to take the trade down. But I've missed that by a good 3-4 hours. So there's not really too much I can do or worry about at this point. Let me just see when this kicked in. It was 1. Oh, that's a shame. Yeah, I was up at 1 o'clock this morning. I should have had a look at that.
So was I, waiting for that euro thing. Fortunately, I did stay up.
Yeah. Just trying to see. I'm just having a look whether there was. Yeah, there wasn't really. I probably should have got out of that last thing there. Oh well, we'll see. We'll see what happens here. I mean, it's got to get through this resistance. I will take it down if it breaks through here and comes back again. You know, that's going to be the most frustrating of the two possibilities here. Really, what I'm looking at is this to refuse this area, come back a little bit, and give me a way to get out with a little bit of profit here. But if it comes through here, then I think I'm going to be fairly flat on this one, and I'm just going to have to accept it.
Okay, one thing I didn't share with you this morning so far is I do have another order in the market, and it is US dollar yen.
Oh, great. Okay.
But it's nowhere near entry. And we spoke about this yesterday, actually, and I said, what on earth is this template I've got on my chart that's got an actual moving average on it? Because I don't use moving averages at all. But anyway, since it was there, it provided us with a nice confluence. And thus far, was it this week? No, last week. We bounced off it. We put in a little bit of a doji, a hold at the weekly pivot. We bounced off the weekly pivot, and we've now come back to that it's 200 moving average, I think, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so when I saw this candle this morning, I'm a bit of a fan of trading dojis. Probably not in the best context, but to my mind, this was putting in a lower high, and therefore I put an entry underneath the weekly pivot here and was looking for probably the bottom of this channel to start with, and exiting most of the position. If it got a breakthrough, then happy days. I don't know that I'm willing to hang on to this now. Again, it's come back to the 200 moving average. I think there'll probably be a better entry if I'm willing to wait for one. I'll just have a look at the 4-hour chart, see if that's possible, because essentially it'll still be giving us a lower high here. And look what it's giving us. It's giving us back-to-back high test, low test bars, which is it's like I call that a cactus, because it's very, very difficult to touch them without getting hurt. Yeah, look, I don't know. We've got a fair bit of time to wait on this. Perhaps I'm now thinking another test of here. I'm not thinking that there's clarity, is probably what I'm saying. I will leave the order on, and similar to yesterday, we didn't get a lot of movement until the US session. That may well be the case. The problem is it's gone through where my stop loss would be, which means it's far easier for it to go back there. No, I'm going to can it, guys. I'm going to can it. Sorry. So let's get rid of that and look for a better one. It probably won't be this bar, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Why am I bearish? Dollar yen. The yen being so weak of late. Oh, look, I think the formation really off the top of the channel here. If I go back to that daily chart, it's almost, but not quite, a bearish engulfing bar, but it's in a perfect position, as I said before. Even if you take that 200 moving average out of the picture and put a horizontal level there, you can see it's been resistance, it's been support, messy through here, of course. But we're back there again, and we've got a confluence area. So, you know, why not? Why not look for short here?
Yeah, the yen has been weak, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has, absolutely. So it's a little bit tough in that regard from a relative strength point of view, but the dollar is coming off. So yeah, look, I just think technically it's not a bad position to take if I get the right scenario. So I'll keep my eye on it, and I just don't know if that 4-hour candle is going to be good enough. What would I like to see it? I think it needs just a little bit of color to it, a little bit of red tinge. That might entice me. There's plenty of room here down to the daily pivot. That's what I like about it. So the reward to risk here is pretty good. We'll see. What else have we got going? Euro Aussie I was talking about, wasn't I? Euro Aussie short. Yeah, there's no setup there yet. Let me see how that's looking on a smaller time frame. Messy, hey? We've got to get away from here and then come back to it. What would I like to see? That might do. Okay, let's look for a break here of this line, consolidate in this area, back below it, and retest the confluence daily pivot. That might be the place to go. That might be plan A for the day on Euro Aussie. Everything else, what's oil doing, Ash?
Oil,
hanging around.
Yeah, it does seem to be hanging around, doesn't it? Yeah, managed to. It's in kind of pause mode, isn't it, right now? Oil does seem to be.
Seems to be clear of resistance, however.
There's a little bit of 57.50 I see as a kind of last point of call, but yeah, it does look like we get through that point and we could well be off. I find the market's quite interesting at the minute because we've had a really aggressive run on some of these. Gold being a case in point as well. When we look at, let's have a quick look at oil to start with. But yeah, this.
What are you seeing?
Well, just you know, the run to the upside has been pretty aggressive. As I say, we are in this kind of this range here right now, and it would suggest that this is the last point of call that I see, but it would suggest that we would get something of a dip. This one's probably not as aggressive actually, but you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, you know, a really good string of days. But you know, just down from the lows down here was a really good push to the upside, bit of sideways consolidation, really good push to the upside, maybe some sideways consolidation, and then we see what happens. But the oil story certainly at this stage looks like it's turned around. To be back in positivity again, which will probably give a boost to stocks there. Now, when it comes down to gold, this is the other one I find absolutely. This is fascinating, really, what's happened with gold, because what you're saying, and it's interesting what you were saying about the yen, because when it comes down to the yen, it seems that that gold is the safe haven of choice right now. You know that maybe metals generally seem to be the safe haven of choice, and gold is almost back to the 2016 highs. It's not too far away, and again, you know, just a huge waterfall to the downside. But what a move ever since we put in the 1102 kind of the 1182 kind of area. Ever since we got down there, it just it's just rocketed really. Maybe a little bit of a moment here, but first first higher low, and we haven't really had no. Yeah, it's just been going and going and going. So there does seem to be a little bit of protection being putting out there, and in a way that's kind of like that's filtering into what's going on with stocks, because you know the stock market is continue to be buoyant, and even with all the concerns out there, it continues to be buoyant. But I suppose if these funds are hedging with some gold, then they're not so concerned with their holdings with stocks. That's the interesting thing that we have right now.
Yeah, if they've got them both rolling, then yeah, why not? I wonder how long it's been that we've been saying, how long can this go on? How long can this go on? It's been a while, and yet it continues to do it, and it looks like it's going to make yet again new highs. Amazing.
What, gold?
No. The Dow.
The Dow, yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it? You know, it didn't really come down. Again, you know, the Dow's another really interesting one. There just seems to be, it just seems to have these periods of overextension without any true and significant retracement. You know, it didn't come back that far. That's where
no reason for it to rally off there, is there?
No, I mean this is the primary trend line down here, and we haven't seen that primary trend line. So huge move down, huge fear in the market pushing it down, but the reaction since then has just been strength upon strength upon strength, and it just doesn't, as you say, it doesn't really give us a technical reason. Let me just see what this line is. I guess there's one there. I guess there's a line there which does give us the breakout and of the channel and the retest of the channel, but I guess the channel's probably been pretty much. That was the breakout there. Yeah, I mean the channel has now
Done
run
the
its
job.
course. So we're in a kind of a new phase. I was looking at this the other day to see if we got some sort of diamond pattern. But I was really having to kind of squint to make it work, because the diamond patterns trend line would have been there, and if we hadn't had last week's upside, then I think things would have been a little bit different. But I could have used that. I could have used this, and I probably would have had my last level round here. So that would have been a pretty good diamond there, I think. But yeah, last week's price action has really swept that aside, even with this weak looking bar. The question really right now for the Dow is, does the overextension suggest that we do need to kind of well, does the overextension suggest that if this does start to fall, it's going to fall really viciously, or does the overextension just suggest that there's so much confidence out there that any pullbacks are just going to be gobbled straight back up again? And certainly at this stage, you have to say the latter, because that's a pretty bullish candle, sort of, off the back of this. Yeah, it really is. I mean, but the only thing is that it's so strong. It's so strong, and it is on resistance as well. But it's so strong that you would suggest that that there would be a significant dip. The trade wars, I think, are obviously the main story here. And when it comes down to these trade wars, the interesting thing about the story is that the numbers that we've had from China specifically have suggested a potential global slowdown. Germany, as I keep saying, have been slowing down. If the trade wars start to subside, I guess people are sort of like looking at the potential for the numbers to switch because of the agreement. But we are at an end of a business cycle as well, so there are other mitigating things out there, and it really does depend on which side of the argument you end up falling. But if you end up falling on the side of the argument that the trade wars are being resolved will boost global growth, then I suppose there's no reason to try and get out here.
Yeah, look, you're talking about a thing I don't trade. I don't care at the end of the day which way it goes in terms of trading, but of course it will drag everything with it, no matter what happens. Whichever way that goes, everything else goes.
Do you know what's interesting as well? Sorry to cut you up, mate, but what's interesting as well is that each of these moves has carried less momentum. I know we have a pretty strong momentum move here, but it's coming off a point of strong rejection of a level up here. So this one, obviously, you can see just from the way the price action bars have gone, that had a really a significant momentum swing to the upside. This one again, it kind of when it got going, it gave us another swing to the upside, but nowhere near as strong as the first. So the leg, this second leg, has slowed. Now with this one, because of this particular move here, it's dragged it all the way back down again, and I'm just starting to see that that the momentum is starting to weaken here. So there's still, I think, technical reasons to suggest that we are going to get some weakness. I think that the issue that we've really got is that this is going to be a timing thing, and what's the next thing that could make this? And as I say, the huge issue with any of this is if we try and guess that the trade wars break down, we could be in a lot of trouble if that goes the other way.
Can we put a time frame fundamentally on that big sell bar?
A time frame.
A fundamental reason. I can't remember the back that far. It's 2 weeks
Oh,
ago,
okay. Well, December. Yeah, this was the very last
you're on
last
monthly
month.
chart.
Yeah, very last month of last year, and so yeah, that was
The
all to
Christmas
do with.
rally in reverse.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was to do with just general figures out of China were weak at that particular point. And maybe we're waiting for the next round of Chinese numbers to give us a little bit more clarity of whether this does shift to the downside or not. But yeah, this was trade war zone. I think this was possibly to do with North Korea. Came back up, and then I think this is to do with trade wars, which is obviously a lot more significant for business, which is why it really did start to gain some traction to the downside. But the good thing about this is that that the trade wars were fairly well telegraphed. It was, there was plenty of opportunities here, but what's going on right now is that the rhetoric is subsiding, and I even read yesterday that China have sent their main negotiator to America to finish up with the trade negotiations, which apparently is seen as a pretty good sign
for getting a deal, getting a resolution.
Yeah,
Or
I
for
mean,
China.
I'm still not. Yeah, so they're looking for the resolution, and it looks like certainly from what I read yesterday that the market expects that to happen. I will see if I can find that. Oh, maybe that wasn't yesterday. Maybe it was even Monday. That was I read that, which I possibly have deleted that news. Yeah, I think yeah, I've deleted that news, unfortunately. So yeah, it wasn't yesterday. It was Monday. Monday they were sending out their main negotiator, and it seems that he is one of the big players that that would probably give the potential trade wars some positive resolution, because he's the big player, and for him to
Time
be
will tell,
called
mate.
over, it seems like it's near the end.
He's got a fairly staunch combatant, however. So he needs to be strong. We've got a bloke on the other side who won't take a step backwards in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the point certainly that the article was making was that that the ground has now been laid for this this kind of final push, and if you're going to have a final push, then you need your best general on the team, and it looks like he's now been called upon. So so it's looking fairly positive on that front, I think.
Just having a look at the 30-minute charts, mate, because we're getting very close to the bottom of the hour. We might have a little whiz around the ground, eh?
Yeah, let's have a look, and we will have a FTSE update as well, but it's probably going to be towards the end of the show, because there's this very, very interesting things going on at this particular point. But yeah, let's have a look at the 30-minute charts, then we'll get to the FTSE for a quick update as well.
Okay. A few things to look at. One would be dollar yen, which is where I'm waiting to see a move to the downside. Kind of in no man's land at the moment, not in terms of the 30-minute chart, but here we have what may be a triple top. Are we at 111 or are we not? There's a few questions to ask here. Let me go a little bit wider so we can get context. Yeah, look, I'm still looking for a lower high on the daily chart. On the daily chart and the 4-hour chart and the 30-minute chart, if you like. But the daily chart's where I've got my order underneath the daily candle. But maybe I've got better entries up here. Maybe I have. How strong is that level is the question. Yeah. It's not the strongest in the world, is it? That's true. But I'm still willing to play it if it does set up. Maybe the 30-minute chart's just a little bit too early. Let me see what we've got here. I'll put my stop up there. No, I'm trading straight into that. No, the risk is too much. Okay, let me dwell on it for a little bit and see if I can come up with something a little bit better than that. Perhaps it's going to be take note of the higher low, the lower high, but get an entry after it's actually panned out if the market will afford me that. I just don't want to trade into this level here on a 30-minute chart. It's too dangerous because it could bounce and just take me straight out. So no, I'm going to wait on that one. Aussie CAD, not interested in Euro. Aussie I am, but I did want this price to get up here somewhere so I can find a short. So we're on the way, but we're not there yet. There's no thought of a trade here right now. Euro CAD. We say all was doing, I can't remember. Oh, it looks to be in fresh air. Okay, so Euro CAD to sell for me. What have we got? Got a wee break. We've got a shocking bar. Good. I'll have to get price away from here. Again, it's not a candle I'd like to trade, but yeah, I'm thinking short Euro CAD. This is pound yen. And is there anything interesting across here? It kind of is. Too late to trade the lower high, but what I could trade, no, I couldn't because I'm trading straight into the low of the day. Excuse me. I think I sneezed at exactly the same time last night, for whatever reason. Okay, we might be able to get this one. This is not this candle, but the next candle, the current candle rather, not the one that's just closed. So I'd like to see this bar here kind of close around here somewhere. If that were the case, I will place a short underneath it. We'll take profit on the low of the day, and then we'll leave the rest open to the daily pivot. So pound yen is definitely a possibility. I'd be interested in that if there was a sign of reversal here, but there's not. Is there on an hourly chart? No. So I don't see any sign of reversal in the first place here. There's no candle pattern telling me this is about to go south. If there was, and I got that bar there, I'd be willing to trade that straight away. But I'm not for that reason. I don't have anything here that's telling me reversal at this juncture. But I'm on notice, so I can definitely see there's a possibility. Look, quite the same here on Aussie yen. Hourly. No, same. So to trade this short, I need not one hint. I need two hints, and I've already only got one, and it's following the prime one that's not there, if you like. So for that reason, I'm going to stay out of that one as well. But again, it's on notice. This is a bit more like it, but the candle's crap. The size doesn't worry me that much. The reward to risk is pretty ordinary. Into the low of the day is very ordinary. But I don't mind the fact that we've got a bit of a double top sitting here and a lower high. I wonder what that's going to look like on the hourly. Same mongrel bar. It's a little bit awkward, guys. Yes, I like it. but I don't like the reward to risk. So no. Pound US dollar, we've spoken about that. What am I waiting for here? Still really no reversal either. Pound yen is the P at the moment. Aussie dollar, well, that's just a mess. I can't find any reason to get confident about a direction here, I don't think. No. Leave that. Euro pound, nicely back to the daily pivots. If you're an Asia session trader, there's no reason why you wouldn't have taken that bar there. There's 100,000 reasons why I wouldn't take that bar there, not least of which it's probably about 3 pips. Yeah, yeah. So I don't trade 3 pip candles, but that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. Double bottom, higher low, trade. But no, not there. I'd really like to see this get to this level, and there I would look to scale back into the position I'm already in. So if we get back to there, happy days. If we don't and go south, happier days, I suppose. It doesn't really matter. What else have we got? Nothing else. Ash, you're back to entry just about. What are you going to
do? Yeah, just back to entry. Well, yeah. So let's talk about the technical picture here, and then we'll just get to a little bit of these headlines as well. So the technical picture here is as Jeff says, it's back to entry. Now this is an hourly chart, and I'm the hourly chart is the one that really interests me. I've got to look at the short-term charts to see where this hourly may be driven. Now, if I look at the 15 is just put in this this reversal bar. Now this will be an Actions to Wealth high test bar. This bar is quite key because this bar really does have to cut down a fair distance into this bar for it to be genuinely bearish. But what could be okay is if we do drive down below this line. So if we get somewhere deep into the body of the bar would be fine. And if we drive down below the line, and then we do from that point move back up and just retest this line, because at that point that's going to suggest that that there could well be some further downside. And I wouldn't mind holding there. So I'm really watching this bar. I've got to let this bar close, the next 15-minute bar close, really to kind of make a decent decision on this. If it ends up closing just above the line, then it won't suggest that the bears are in control. It won't necessarily suggest the bulls are in control, but it won't suggest the bears are in control either. It will suggest the bulls are in control if it ends up more like a spinning top, because it will show that that the appetite to react off this bar just isn't there. So so this bar right now is pretty key, and it does, as I say, it needs to close somewhere around this point here, and that would be pretty good, because that's going to start looking like an evening star pattern if it closes somewhere around about the but about 10 pips below where we are. And then I'll hold on and I'll just see how it unfolds. But it's going to be the case of 2 bars to give us a decent picture here, because this bar closing somewhere in this area, the next bar closing on the trend line, which is where entry is, will leave me holding. I won't do anything until I actually see this area taken out, and I want to see that area taken out on a longer term time frame. This is just really looking under the hood to see what's likely to happen next. And at this stage, we've certainly got to wait for the next 5 minutes to kind of see what is completed with a 15. But then if we come back again to the hourly after looking under the hood, I can probably do this. Come back to the hourly. What'll end up happening is if we get the best case scenario on the 15, where we do end up kind of popping back and then popping back up again, is that the hourly will basically end up closing right on the trend line. Now, that doesn't really concern me, because that suggests that the downtrend is still intact. So until I see the downtrend definitely broken by hourly price action, then I'm not too concerned. It still may mean taking the trade off, but it might mean that that I start tucking in tight, letting price kind of do the work for me. The big issue that I certainly do have, and I can't get away from, is the fact that I don't have the driver that I need to suggest this is coming lower. And I'll quickly read you some of the news here. Yeah, you're absolutely right about what the US is asking the Chinese to do. It's reported here by Bloomberg that that the US has been asking China to keep the value of the yuan stable as part of the trade negotiations between the two world's largest economies, a move amid neutralizing any effort by Beijing to devalue its currency to counter American tariffs. So the US aren't happy with the way that that China have reacted, and you know, I have to say, when I read that, that suggests that that this game of chess has probably been won by China. You know, they didn't. To my knowledge, they didn't slap the same kind of tariffs that the US slapped on China onto the American goods, but they played a different card, and that card looks like it's worked out. It's certainly got the Americans round the table and softened their stance on these trade talks. So that looks pretty good. I think the only thing is going to be now is if China hold firm in that and they say that's just not going to be possible, which they may well do. And
as I said, I don't see need for them to do that. They might as well just say, yeah, sure, no problem, and then do what they want to do anyway.
Yeah. No, it just depends on whether that's going to be put down in black and white, doesn't it? You know, as you say,
who's going to monitor that, and how do they know? And you know,
I just think that would be it'd be a crazy thing for China to agree to, because what if, you know, all of a sudden
I agree with you, but I think they might as well agree to it and still do it anyway.
Yeah,
that's my point.
Yeah,
to me, you know, it's a lame duck.
Just on that though, you know, we're just on the tool of devaluing your currency. You know, we know that that currencies are devalued when the growth needs boosting, and you know, that's really what China have done, isn't it? They, you know, they've devalued their currency to try and boost that growth, and it'd be very I would have thought kind of irresponsible of China to agree to you know, potentially not help their businesses out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's taking a tool out of their toolkit.
Yeah, and how do you do the maths on that? I think for China to agree to that, they would have to have some serious movement from the states when it comes down to these tariffs. You know, they're gonna the negotiations are going to be they're going to have to be well and truly in their favor for them, surely, for them to agree to that. I'm just also reading that Governor Kuroda said that if currency moves are having an impact on the Bank of Japan's ability to meet inflation goal, then they would consider easing policy in response. And I think that says it all. You know, they consider easing policy in response to the impact on currency moves. You know, what if in fact, overnight headlines have seen the dollar CNH, which I'm not sure what that is. Obviously, it's the Chinese yuan, is it? It can't be. Break lower out of its recent range. The idea of FX being part of the negotiations is something that has been discussed a couple of times since Buenos Aires meeting. However, this story has transformed what might have previously been thought to be a verbal and soft commitment into something more solid and binding. The fact that the yuan pledge might be written into the MOU seems very important in our trading desk's views. The reaction in dollar. What is that, CNH?
It may well be the one. Maybe they spell the one differently.
Okay, has been relatively limited so far with the dollar CNH only about 250 bits lower. More generally, while the big picture hasn't fundamentally changed, better sentiment post credit data supports the CNH and by extension the EMFX, the emerging markets foreign exchange. So there's a little bit of news on that. There's also some news on the pound, which is just a comment from yesterday. A multitude of Brexit-related news helped propel the pound higher yesterday. The former European Commission president stated that Article 50 is likely to be extended, and that's pound positive, though the European Commission advised that the withdrawal agreement cannot be reopened, which is pound negative. However, Prime Minister Theresa May hopes to gain legally binding changes to the Irish backstop within the withdrawal agreement and is scheduled to meet the current European Commission president, Jean-Claude Juncker, today. Now, that's quite an interesting headline, because one of the sticking points for Theresa May to get her deal through Parliament was the Irish backstop, and the fact that the Irish backstop agreements needs to be needs to be legally binding to say that it literally is a backstop and it will end, and they're looking for that to end in 2 years. Now that may well get enough support in Parliament to push her deal through. However, I have also heard that some of the Brexiteers won't be too keen on it, because the way that she is going to get this legally binding change is by taking her Attorney General, who already said that the Irish backstop is not going to be cannot be legally binding. So we could potentially be caught in the Irish backstop indefinitely. So that in itself may well be a bit of a red herring. There are also further potential defections, as I said a little while ago, from the Labour Party and maybe even from the Tories as well, weakening the government's position in many ways, because they won't then have. Well, it depends how many numbers leave. You know, if too many numbers leave the Conservative Party, they won't have an overall majority in the Houses of Parliament, which is going to make things kind of tricky for them and lawmakers to pass anything, never mind anything to do with Brexit. So that story as well has probably got some pound positive slant to it, because of the fact that the defectors are all Remainers and they are all calling for this second referendum. And it could be that the way that Labour stop more people leaving their party is by eventually buckling and giving this second referendum, which it seems to me that the market kind of likes that the pound, the traders of the pound quite like that. They quite like the potential that the second referendum would give us a positive outcome rather than the negative outcome. And when I say positive, I mean actually remaining in the EU rather than leaving it. So there are a few things that that probably will unfold before the end of this month. I don't think we're waiting for March 29th for that particular chapter to unfold. I think we probably will see defectors maybe start wrangling now with their respective parties, and then maybe we start to see the movement towards a second referendum, or we see a movement towards Theresa May's deal being more likely to get through. So one way or the other, I think the pound is just starting to become a little less muddy, or the story is becoming a little less muddy.
You're a glass half full man. There's no doubt about it. I can't see the end of this volatility yet, unfortunately. When you said earlier that I'm in the right position, and I'm in a good position, but I don't know that any position that hasn't got a 1,000 pip stop at the moment is safe from being stopped. So
yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? But yeah. I guess at least you've given yourself a chance.
Sure.
And that's what I like about it is that I suppose my question is, do you have the stomach for letting this one go, or would you just take what you've got and then look for an opportunity later down the line? Or what's your thinking on it? Is your thinking that you think, okay, let's now we're in, let's give this one a shout?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to close it per se, but I am going to reduce. I'm going to buy back some positions. So I'm not going to leave everything on the table, because at the end of the day, I'm an intraday trader, and I've got myself into a decent intraday trade. If I don't take profit on that, then I'm not doing my work, so to speak. The part that I will leave open, it will just be cream. If it happens. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't matter. But if it happens, as you say, I'm in a position to take advantage of that. But I'm not going to throw the house on something that may not happen.
Yeah.
That's always been my stance, and that won't change, because I'm not here for today. I'm not here for next week. I'm here because it's what I do. It's really doesn't matter what happens day to day. Yes, you don't get too many opportunities, and that's the thing. You do not get too many opportunities to trade a major currency that can move maybe 2,000-3,000 pips. That's the one thing. So yes, I'm happy to be in, and I'll leave something on the table. But at the end of the day, I'm an intraday trader, so that's exactly the way I'll approach it.
Let me also read you this about oil as well. Sorry, mate. Thanks for the response on that.
No problem.
So oil prices have hovered near the 2019 highs on Wednesday, supported by OPEC led supply cuts and US sanctions on Iran and Venezuela, but capped by soaring US production and expectations of economic slowdown. West Texas intermediates crude oil futures were at 55.9. I think that's changed slightly now, down 16 cents in the last statement, but not far off the 2019 high. International Brent crude futures have yet to trade. Saudi Arabia, so the world's biggest oil exporter, Saudi Arabia, is expected to reduce shipments of light crude oil to Asia in March as part of efforts to tighten markets. OPEC, as well as some non-affiliate producers, such as Russia, agreed last year to cut output by 1.2 million barrels per day to prevent a large supply overhang from swelling. We have lowered Saudi crude oil output in line with announcements and are now assuming that Saudi Arabia will produce in the first 3 quarters of 2019 less than the 10.3 billion target that target it agreed to on the 7th of December OPEC non-OPEC meeting, which is interesting, isn't it? When we kind of look at let's go back to WTI again. So the 7th of December was the announcement, and this is why I find the fundamentals so key. Let's go back to the 7th of December, which is just here. Nope, that's not it. It is there. That's the 7th of December. Now, the reason I find the fundamentals so key is that that what it gives us is or what it would give me is a bias of what I'd be looking at, and this is where the technicals kick in, because if a fundamental trader got into this point, they wouldn't have a bad price. There's no two ways about it. They wouldn't have a bad price, but they wouldn't be too confident that that the market had turned around. And it was the fundamentals, the technical traders that would have come in off the back of that and gone, right, if it breaks that particular level there and I get an entry off a back test, then I will take the trade. Obviously, it came up a little bit, but then rejected it. So there would be nothing there. But then obviously the trend line would change, and then the trend line would change, and you'd have an entry here. The trend line would change. You'd probably have an entry at this point here, and now you're at this point here. So, the stories are so important for bias, but they by no means fix the problem of where to get in. And I think this is where a combination of the technical analysis and fundamental analysis can really help. but in my opinion, why the technical analysts will end up in a better position, because the technical analysts would have just seen a break. This was pretty difficult to play because it didn't come back far enough. But as soon as it kind of got through this level, even ignoring the announcement back in December, they would have seen that that there was an entry point here, and they'd be certainly in a trade to the upside right now. So this is where I think that the two worlds meet really, really well. I mean, there might even be an entry down here somewhere if you start to come into shorter term timeframes. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, and there was as well. Little inverted head and shoulders going on here. The break, back test failed, but the break again and the back test worked. I'm sure entries would have been at the highs there, with stops at the lows. So, I think staying on top of the news events can really help push you towards a market or a possible or a stock. But then if we can combine our technical expertise, then we can really kind of pinpoint exactly the right place to get in on some of this stuff.
Yeah, you can leverage it. You can leverage both pieces of information. Mate, go back to the daily chart. If I looked at that chart, I would say that's the FTSE.
Absolutely, mate. Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, comparing the two, they do look very similar, don't they? Inverted head and shoulders, and oil is sorry, the FTSE does have some pretty big oil players. So so you do make a good point on that. Now, I don't think the players are mentioned in this particular report. No, they're not. But yeah, I mean, BP are a big player in the FTSE 100 and a big player in the oil industry as well. So yeah, you make a really good point. And also, if we look at this, I'm not sure if we're going to see the same exactly, but let's look at how this does compare to the Dow, because the Dow is also, I mean, it's not exact by any stretch, but we do see this kind of reversal pattern. Interestingly, the Dow is more of a V-shaped recovery than an inverted head and shoulders. But all markets tended to seem to do this, didn't they? This is the S&P. Copper has been a fascinating story of recent times as well, where this has just taken off to the upside. Again, down to supply issues, and this is really what we want to look at. And also, I think Julian's really good at this stuff, and he's really on top of this stuff, and it's always well worth listening to what he's got to say. But when he was talking about the price of gold and how much gold costs to mine, same with oil, actually. I think he mentioned the same thing with oil, how much it costs to actually get out the ground and to mine. It would it kind of suggested that we were at that particular point where
it certainly gives you a good bottom, doesn't it?
Yeah, it starts to give you some value, and I think when you combine all these different aspects, if you combine the knowledge of how much it costs to produce a commodity, and then you combine the supply story from Saudi Arabia, then you start to really build a picture where you can say with a higher degree of confidence, this is the direction I believe this is going to go in.
Yeah, absolutely. No argument.
Okay, 9 o'clock. Let's we want to check those half-hour bars, but let's just have a quick check on the FTSE, because the FTSE has really left us in a position of holding. We there's not really a whole bunch that I'm willing to do here. I'm not willing to take this off with a failure to get through the trend line, because it still suggests that the trend is moved to the downside. So I'm going to stick in here, mate, and just let this take a little bit longer to unfold.
All right, mate. Happy days. Let's hope it just pisses off to the south side real quick.
That'd be good.
Strong and hard.
That'd be good. That'd be good. Just on the note of that, though, and anybody that's in this, I am. I am. There's a high probability that I'll be taking this off. You know, if it gets back down to these lows again, there's a high probability I'll be taking this off. If it gets down to testing maybe somewhere along this area, that there's still a high probability. So somewhere in the next 20 to 40 pips, I'll be looking to probably liquidate this particular trade. It's not definite, but as I say, high chance that that's going to happen.
Alrighty, this won't take too long because there's not a whole lot happening for me at this point. But we will have a quick squeeze through the 30-minute charts. We'll start with Euro Pound. This is the trade that I'm in, of course. I really would love to see this here. And that may sound crazy given I'm short, but look, you can't go in one direction. Market never goes in one direction. It always has to retrace. And the good part about retracement is if it does find a resistance level and bounces off it, it's giving you exactly what you're looking for. And you're looking for confirmation that the trend that you're in is still intact. So that's exactly what I'll be looking for. If I do find price here and it gives me a little signal that it's going again, then I'll actually add to my position and see how we go. But there's no trade here yet, but it's looking reasonable. Aussie, look, Aussie's messy. There's no thought of a trade here right now. I wouldn't have minded playing the daily pivot test trade, but it's not there. So no for me. Cable, exactly the same. It's leaking. It's leaking to the daily pivot, but there's no way I can trade a leak. I have to trade something a little bit better than that. Can we trade leaks? Are there derivatives of leaks? There might be.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. I quite like that as a strategy name.
They're a plant. So it's anti-beef. So that's a good thing. We've got, this is probably one of the better of them. But again, I need to see something that I like. And let's put this just as something you guys can play with if you want to think about euro dollar and you're thinking anything but long, because I won't be trading it long from here, that's for sure. Look, two ways to play this, and it's going to take some time, of course. If we get over to here, we're probably going to be into tomorrow, so we won't discuss that opportunity. What I would like to see is price break through here and take out the highs. So a strong move to the high side. Let's say we find 113.60. That's one of my favorite levels. And then we look to sneak back here. You won't get a big opportunity to take advantage of this, because if it does spike up here, it's looking for liquidity to go short, in my opinion. So that's what I'd be looking for. I'd be looking for stops to be hit above here, and then a very quick move, certainly down to the daily pivot, but maybe even down to the weekly pivot, and take out all of this from yesterday. So just keep your eye on that. If it does set up, then I think you'll have a pretty good ride here, to be fair. Spike up, and then a very big, strong sell-off, maybe in the US session. Aussie yen, look, not the same at all. In fact, I'm not interested in this cross from where it is. I'd like to see it down here, but because I haven't got a reversal pattern, yes, I've got a lower high, but I can't trade that. It's too messy. Not for me. Euro yen, the same applies. Look, I'd really like to see a substantial double top. Maybe we've already got it. And then if we get a lower high here, that's a nice candle, we could certainly trade it down to the daily pivot, but you want to be taking profit at this level as well. So yes, that's the preferred way, but no trade yet. Pound yen's let me down. I was looking to trade this if we got a bullish candle as the last candle. Hasn't happened. From here, not not a lot on offer. Maybe there's something through here a little bit later, but it's a lot later, so there's no point going into it. EuroCAD. I wanted to trade this short, didn't I? Is that bar tradable? I don't think so. It actually is, if I disregard the support that we're at. Am I willing to do that? I don't think so. Bounce, bounce. Gee, it's not far off a trade. Profit there. Get out there. Okay. Let's place a very small order here. We'll go with EuroCAD short. Very small, you know, even a quarter of a lot. That'll do me on this, because it's high risk. We're trading straight into support, but I do like the fact that we've broken the weekly pivot and we've retested the weekly pivot. If the bulls are in control here, we shouldn't be even concerned with an entry. They'll just take it back up here. But if these guys here are showing their intent, they'll come back here with a vengeance and take these lows. So okay, we'll try this, but it is high risk, as I said. If you're not a high risk trader, then don't take it. It's a sell stop, and the entry is going to be at, if I can see my levels, let's get rid of that. 149.27 it will be. $149.27. We'll put a stop loss in about, what cross am I on? Spreads are 1.5, so 2 pips above there. What's that level? $149.77. 50 pips, that can't be right. No, that's not right. Let me try that again. I must have the entry wrong. Yeah, I have. Okay, the stop loss is right. The entry is wrong. 149.77 is the stop loss. Get this entry right. The entry, that's better. Add a 20 to it. So it's actually 47. 1.4947 is your entry. It's a short, and we're selling EuroCAD at that level, but very small stake, guys. High risk trade. Taking profit, we'll be taking profit right about there, which is 149.38. And we will exit the trade at 149.15. Okay. Now, if this goes long here and takes out the stop before entry, obviously, cancel the order. So, sorry, I'll rephrase that. Any close above the weekly pivot, 30-minute, hourly, doesn't matter. Any close above the weekly pivot, cancel the order if we're not taken into the trade. There you go, mate. We found one that's a possibility. It is high risk, but high risk comes good reward at times. We'll see how we do.
Yeah, fair play. Okay, mate. Well, you've controlled the risk by the amount of the lot size, as you say, which is great.
Yep. That's the way to go.
Well, we'll do it again tomorrow. We'll see how this the trades shape up. Certainly looks like a bit of a waiting day for me. The FTSE looks probably strong enough to stay fairly buoyant, and I won't be taking a loss on this one, because I don't think it's necessary. It's just really going to be now where I either hedge or if it comes back to take profit, but we will see how that pans out. So let's do it again tomorrow, mate. Same trade time, same trade channel. I will
Actually,
see you.
before
Yeah,
we go,
yeah.
you're talking about waiting and patience, and I know there's a few people in the room that weren't here at the beginning, and they probably were in the room yesterday when I said this is an in-case trade, a just-in-case trade, when we trade the euro long at this point. And the reason it was just in case, it was just in case we went long without testing the weekly pivot. So we placed an order there that got knocked over, but again at very small risk, and we reduced the risk by moving our stops into a relatively safe place that was not safe, if you know what I mean. But we reduced our risk substantially, and what we lost here was nothing. Then when we did wait, I stayed up till way after midnight, because I knew that there was going to be an opportunity come our way. And there was an opportunity come our way with this little tweezer bottom sitting here. So as soon as I saw that, I had to enter the market. And this level here, the just in case level, became who cares? Doesn't matter. Because we got the move. And that was the whole point of the exercise. So if it doesn't happen sometimes for you in a session, the next session can produce pretty decent results for you. That's the whole point of the exercise.
Yeah, I really like that. And interestingly, the just in case was so you could get an area that you preferred, and that's because that shaped up. It was an even better trade in the end. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's a real balance. It's a balance with not kind of falling in love with your trade just because you're in it, and a balance of holding on long enough to let it unfold. And if you can have a clear plan on that, it's not so bad. But yeah, it can be a tricky skill, that.
It can, and sometimes you need to have a big set of kahunas as well. But if you recognize the risk before you enter the trade, you shouldn't have too many issues.
Yeah.
Because again, as soon as I saw myself taken into this trade, I knew it wasn't the trade I wanted to be in, and I said that at the time.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be in this trade, because I've seen this too many times before.
Yeah.
If you get taken in early in the session and on a candle like that, here's what will happen. You will just get wiped out. But because that happens, it's cause and effect. I've also seen this so many times before, and it's why I was willing to stay up late last night, because I knew there'd be a second opportunity to take this trade, because it's happened that many times before. And if I'd woken up this morning and gone to bed here, which is, if you see a bar like that, you're probably entitled to think, okay, it's all over. If I'd woken up this morning and prices up here, I wouldn't be very happy with myself at all. So it's not easy living in the Antipodes, because you've got to weigh up your sleep patterns with everything else. But I don't know. I guess that only comes through experience. If you've seen it that many times, happen that many times, and you're willing to wait it out, then it will come.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. It is about experience, and it's also about having the confidence to trust yourself as well. That you've done the work enough times that you back yourself, and it's also making sure that the first trade is safe enough, so you give yourself that opportunity as well. So you can think with a clear head.
Yes, you're not gutted. You're not you haven't risked a good portion of your bank account. That's the key. There will always be a second chance.
Yes. Yes.
Someone told me that many years ago, and I said, bullshit.
Yeah.
If I missed the trade, I missed the trade. It's not the case. The price will come back here at some stage.
Yeah.
And maybe give you another chance, or it'll come to a level that you're comfortable with. That's where I wanted to take the trade in the first place.
Yeah.
Right here. It's like how many pips? 3 pips from where I wanted to enter the market. Really, you know, happy days, I guess, and it just is a case in point that I think is worth considering. You know, if you're going to take high risk trades, as I have here, right? You know, my bias here is short Euro CAD. Now, if this is wrong, I don't know that I'll stay up. It depends on when this happens, I suppose, if I get taken into the trade or not. But if I was to get taken into this trade now and I got knocked over, again, I would wait, because the best place to enter this trade short is definitely not here. It's either here or here. There's the best place to enter this trade short. There's the second best place, and there's the third best place.
Yeah.
This is the worst place to enter this trade short, because it's the worst price available.
Yeah.
And that's why it's high risk. But
yeah,
I don't want to miss it. And I've put this small amount of money on the table. And again, I call it the just in case trade. Just in case it goes and I miss it. But if I'm awake, and I should be, if it gets back up to here, then I have a second opportunity to get into it at a far better price. So that's the theory behind me anyway, mate.
Yeah, no, I like it, mate. I like it. I might be going through one of those myself right now. FTSE's easing back down again, so I might have the opportunity to get out of this on the pivots if they hold up. So yeah, patience is the key many times.
Yeah, look, most times, not many times. You know, more often than not, I reckon.
Yeah.
If you're willing to wait it out, the market will reward you for your patience.
Yes, absolutely. Just for you, those of you that are looking at the FTSE, it's just starting to ease down. Now, the you need to watch out for this pivot area as a potential for closing the trade at a little bit of profit. That's what I'm now looking at. I'll give it a little bit of time. I won't just take it out if it touches there. I'm just going to give it a little bit of time. But if it comes back there and it looks like it's going to hold, I'll be taking the trade off and then looking for a different opportunity to the downside if it bounces to the upside. And if it rockets to the downside, just going to have to accept that one because I'm not keen on sitting through the way that this is unfolding, given the news that is reported about these trade wars right now, which seem to be getting some sort of resolution. So I might just sit back and wait and see how this unfolds. Okay, mate. Well, let's get back and we'll do it again tomorrow, as I say. And you have yourself a good day. Not sure if you're in the.
Cheers. Are we going to pay each other overtime for this shift?
Yeah. Well, I suppose. Yeah.
What's time and a half on nothing?
I'm not sure. I guess just a good feeling in your belly.
No, it's good fun, mate.
Yeah,
it's good fun. Okay.
All right, buddy. I'll see you soon. See you later, guys. And I hope you enjoyed the show. And we'll be back tomorrow doing it all again. Welcome, Ben.
Have a good one, guys.